Wisdom seekers, welcome to a journey not of the world outside, but into the vast, uncharted landscapes of your own mind. Every day, you are confronted by a whirlwind of stimuli, chaos, noise, emotions, and distractions that tug at your attention and demand instant reactions. It's the way of the world now, rapid, frenetic, filled with endless sources of pressure and constant urgency. But what if I told you there's a way to transcend this? A way not just to survive in this storm, but to rise above it? Imagine living with the same calm as a seasoned general on the battlefield, with a mind as clear and unflinching as a monk in meditation. Imagine handling life's greatest provocations with the same grace as the Stoics of ancient times, responding with intention rather than reacting impulsively. The world may throw anything at you, but instead of being swept up in the torrent, you become the immovable rock in the river, letting the waters rush past without losing your footing. This is not a myth, not some unattainable ideal. The ancient philosophers, sages, and warriors knew this secret, and they left behind a roadmap for us, a way to train the mind to respond with clarity, reason, and calm. Today, we will explore 8 profound habits that, when practiced regularly, will transform your mind from a reactive machine into a finely tuned instrument of purposeful response. This is more than self-control. It's about mastering the art of living. If you commit to these habits, you'll discover a shift in your consciousness, a widening of the gap between stimulus and response, between external events and your internal experience. And that, my fellow wisdom seekers, is where your true power lies. So let us begin this journey together, delving deep into each habit, understanding its roots in philosophy, and exploring how it can be applied to your daily life. These are not superficial tricks or quick fixes. These are foundational practices that will, over time, rewire the very structure of your mind. Take a deep breath, settle in, and prepare to unlock the potential within you, to not just react to life, but to respond to it with wisdom, intention, and grace. Wisdom seekers, your support means everything. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and consider using the thank you feature to make a donation. Every like, subscribe, and donation helps us continue our mission of sharing knowledge. Ready to unlock more wisdom? Let's get started. Habit 1. Embrace the pause. Life moves fast. So fast, in fact, that most of us rarely stop to think about the space between action and reaction. Something happens and we react. Instantly, reflexively. It's a deeply ingrained pattern, one that modern life encourages and reinforces. But within that split second between the moment something happens and the moment you respond, lies an extraordinary power. It's a power most people never learn to tap into, but for those who do, it changes everything. The first habit is to embrace the pause. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and legendary psychiatrist, understood this power better than most. He lived through the unimaginable horrors of a Nazi concentration camp and came out with a profound insight into the human condition. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." The pause is that space. It's the moment where your higher mind, your rational self, can step in and take control before your emotions hijack the situation. This isn't just about reacting less, but about building the internal mechanism that allows you to assess, choose, and respond deliberately rather than impulsively. But here's the challenge. Our natural inclination is to avoid the pause. When someone cuts us off in traffic, when we receive a hurtful comment, when a frustrating email hits our inbox, we immediately feel the impulse to react. This is where we must train ourselves to do the opposite. Pause, breathe, and allow space before doing anything. The pause is an act of defiance against our most primitive instincts. It's a deliberate choice to not allow external events to dictate our internal state. Let's take a deeper look into how to cultivate this habit. It all begins with awareness. Most of us go through life on autopilot, unaware of the constant flood of stimuli that provoke us. The first step in embracing the pause is to become acutely aware of the triggers in your life, those moments where you habitually react without thinking. These are your cues to stop, to pause, and to breathe. For instance, consider an argument. When someone criticizes you or says something offensive, the immediate emotional reaction is often anger or defensiveness. But what if, in that very moment, you simply paused? What if you took a deep breath and allowed yourself to feel the emotions without acting on them? The pause creates distance between the stimulus, the criticism, and your response, anger, defensiveness. It gives you the space to decide how to respond calmly, rationally, and without letting the heat of the moment dictate your actions. Philosophically, the pause is rooted in the Stoic tradition. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, often reflected on the idea of self-mastery in his journal, Meditations. He would remind himself that external events are beyond our control, but our responses to them are entirely within our power. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength, he wrote. Aurelius wasn't just reflecting, he was practicing the pause every day. He was training his mind to respond, not react, by constantly returning to the present moment and considering his choices carefully. But how can you develop this habit practically in your own life? A highly effective method is through mindful breathing. This is not complicated. It's as simple as becoming aware of your breath, especially in moments of stress or agitation. When you feel the urge to react, whether it's to a negative comment, a stressful situation, or an internal frustration, stop, take a slow, deep breath, and focus on your exhale. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold the breath for a moment, and then exhale slowly. Do this a few times, and you will notice that the immediate intensity of the emotion begins to dissipate. The space for rationality and calm is created. Mindful breathing isn't just a relaxation technique. It's an ancient practice used by warriors, monks, and philosophers for centuries. In Eastern philosophy, the breath is considered the bridge between the body and the mind. When you control your breath, you begin to control your emotions. The Stoics, too, understood this, although they didn't speak of it in terms of breath. They constantly emphasized the importance of returning to the present moment and maintaining calm in the face of external pressures. As you integrate this habit of pausing into your daily life, something magical begins to happen. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstance. You no longer react impulsively to every stimulus. Instead, you become the observer of your own mind, choosing how and when to respond. Over time, the pause becomes longer. You begin to feel a deeper sense of control over your life. You find that you are no longer thrown off course by every obstacle or challenge. You remain steady, like a captain navigating through turbulent waters, confident that no matter how fierce the storm, you have the power to steer your own ship. Embracing the pause is not easy. It requires discipline, awareness, and a commitment to being fully present. But once you master it, you will discover a freedom that few people ever experience. A freedom to choose your response in every situation. A freedom to act from a place of strength rather than react from a place of weakness. And that, wisdom seekers, is where your true power begins. Habit 2. Master emotional detachment. We are emotional creatures, aren't we? It's part of being human. Emotions surge through us like powerful waves, often without warning. Anger, fear, joy, jealousy, love, frustration, these feelings define much of our experience in the world. But here's the paradox. While emotions are an intrinsic part of our humanity, they are also one of the greatest sources of reactivity. The second habit on our journey is to master emotional detachment. This does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It doesn't mean suppressing or denying your emotions. Emotional detachment, in the context we're exploring, means recognizing your emotions for what they are, temporary, fleeting, and often deceptive, and developing the ability to step back from them, to observe them without being consumed by them. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This statement is more profound than it first appears. What Epictetus is highlighting is the distinction between external events which are outside of your control and your internal reactions, which are entirely within your control. Emotions, as powerful as they are, fall into this category of internal reactions. They are not the reality of the world, they are our interpretation of it. Let's break this down. Imagine you receive an email at work that deeply frustrates you. Your initial emotional reaction might be anger or irritation. You may feel a surge of adrenaline as you consider firing off a sharp reply. But before you do, pause. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this emotion? What story am I telling myself about this situation? The anger you feel is not the email itself, it's your interpretation of the email. Perhaps you're interpreting it as a sign of disrespect or a challenge to your competence. But these are just stories your mind is telling you. The email is a neutral event. Your emotional reaction is your choice. This is where emotional detachment comes in. Emotional detachment is the ability to step back from the immediate story your mind is spinning and observe the emotion without judgment. It's recognizing that emotions are transient states. They rise, they fall, and they eventually dissipate. You don't need to react to them in the moment. In fact, reacting while in the grip of emotion is often where we make our worst decisions. The Stoics had a practice for cultivating emotional detachment that they called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. The idea was simple. They would imagine, in vivid detail, all the worst possible things that could happen to them. Not because they were pessimistic or fatalistic, but because they wanted to prepare their minds for the inevitable difficulties and challenges of life. By mentally rehearsing how they would handle these challenges, they were better able to maintain emotional detachment when adversity struck in real life. For example, imagine waking up each morning and before starting your day, you take a few minutes to reflect on the potential difficulties that may come your way. You think, today I may encounter rude people, I may face setbacks at work, I may receive disappointing news. You visualize these scenarios and imagine yourself responding to them with calmness, clarity, and emotional detachment. This practice doesn't make you pessimistic, it makes you prepared. When challenges arise, they don't catch you off guard because you've already mentally prepared yourself to respond rather than react. Emotional detachment is also closely linked to the concept of impermanence. The Buddhists, like the Stoics, understood that all emotions, positive or negative, are temporary. Nothing lasts forever. When you feel anger, remind yourself, this too shall pass. When you feel sadness, acknowledge that it is a fleeting emotion. Even joy, as wonderful as it is, will eventually fade. This understanding of impermanence helps you maintain emotional balance. You no longer cling to emotions or let them control you because you know that they are not permanent states of being. So, how do you start practicing emotional detachment in your everyday life? It begins with self-awareness. Pay attention to your emotional reactions throughout the day. When you feel a strong emotion, pause and label it. Say to yourself, I'm feeling anger right now, or I'm feeling anxious. By naming the emotion, you create a sense of distance from it. You are no longer consumed by it, you are observing it. From this place of observation, you can choose how to respond. Next, practice reframing your emotional triggers. Let's say you are frustrated with a colleague at work. Instead of reacting emotionally, try to reframe the situation in a way that reduces the emotional charge. Ask yourself, is there another way to interpret this situation? Perhaps your colleague is not being disrespectful but is simply under a lot of stress themselves. By shifting your perspective, you reduce the intensity of your emotional reaction. Finally, remember the wisdom of impermanence. When emotions arise, remind yourself that they are temporary. Do not make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Allow yourself to sit with the emotion, to observe it, and to let it pass without reacting impulsively. Over time, this practice of emotional detachment will become second nature. You will no longer be at the mercy of every emotional wave that comes your way. Instead, you will ride the waves with grace, knowing that they are temporary and that you have the power to choose how you respond. You will no longer be reactive. You will be grounded, centered, and in control of your own mind. Habit 3. Cultivate inner dialogue. If you were to eavesdrop on your own thoughts, what would you hear? Is your inner voice a harsh critic, quick to point out your flaws and mistakes? Or is it a supportive coach, helping you navigate life's challenges with encouragement and wisdom? The third habit, and perhaps one of the most transformative, is to cultivate a wise and empowering inner dialogue. The truth is, we are constantly talking to ourselves, whether we realize it or not. Our inner dialogue, the continuous stream of thoughts running through our minds, shapes how we perceive the world and ultimately how we respond to it. If your inner dialogue is filled with self-doubt, fear, and negativity, you will react to life's challenges from a place of weakness. But if your inner dialogue is grounded in wisdom, strength, and clarity, you will respond with confidence and resilience. Socrates, the great Athenian philosopher, was known for his method of dialogue. He would ask probing questions, challenging people to think more deeply about their beliefs and assumptions. But Socrates wasn't just interested in debating others, he was also deeply engaged in his own inner dialogue. He would constantly question himself, reflect on his thoughts, and challenge his own assumptions. This habit of self-inquiry is at the heart of cultivating a wise inner dialogue. The problem most people face is that they are unaware of their inner dialogue. They let their thoughts run on autopilot without ever stopping to question or challenge them. And often, these thoughts are deeply negative. Think about it. How often have you caught yourself thinking, "I'm not good enough," or "I can't do this," or "This is just the way things are"? These limiting beliefs shape your reactions to life's challenges. They create a mental environment in which you feel powerless, helpless, and reactive. But here's the good news. You can change your inner dialogue. You can cultivate a new narrative, one that empowers you to respond to life's challenges with strength and clarity. Let's start with awareness. Begin to pay attention to the way you speak to yourself throughout the day. Notice the tone of your inner voice. Is it supportive or critical? Does it encourage you to rise to the occasion, or does it tear you down when things get tough? Keep a journal and write down the recurring thoughts and beliefs that shape your inner dialogue. This exercise alone can be incredibly revealing. You may discover that much of your reactivity comes from deeply ingrained thought patterns that you've never questioned. Once you become aware of your inner dialogue, the next step is to challenge it. This is where the Socratic method comes into play. When you catch yourself thinking a negative or limiting thought, ask yourself, is this really true? Let's say you're in a difficult situation, and your inner dialogue says, "I can't handle this." Pause for a moment and ask yourself, is this an objective truth, or is it just a belief? Have I really never handled a challenge like this before? What evidence do I have that I'm not capable? By questioning your thoughts, you begin to dismantle the false narratives that keep you trapped in reactivity. You start to realize that many of your beliefs about yourself and the world are not based on objective reality. They are simply stories you've been telling yourself for years. And once you challenge those stories, you can begin to create new ones. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor, often engaged in this kind of inner dialogue. In his meditations, he would write to himself, reminding himself of the Stoic principles he aspired to live by. He would reflect on the nature of his thoughts, challenge his assumptions, and encourage himself to stay grounded in reason and wisdom. For example, he would often remind himself that external events are beyond his control, and that the only thing he could truly control was his own mind. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength, he wrote. This practice of self-reflection and inner dialogue helped Aurelius maintain his composure and clarity even in the most difficult circumstances. And it can do the same for you. But how do you actually change your inner dialogue? It's not enough to simply question your negative thoughts. You also need to replace them with empowering ones. This is where affirmations and positive self-talk come in. When you catch yourself thinking a negative or limiting thought, consciously replace it with a more empowering belief. For example, if your inner dialogue says, "I can't do this," replace it with, "I've faced challenges before, and I've overcome them. I am capable and resilient." It's important to note that this is not about blind optimism or ignoring reality. It's about aligning your inner dialogue with the truth of your own strength and potential. When you change the way you speak to yourself, you change the way you respond to life. In addition to affirmations, another powerful tool for cultivating a wise inner dialogue is visualization. This is the practice of mentally rehearsing how you want to respond to specific challenges. Just as athletes visualize themselves succeeding before a game, you can visualize yourself responding with calmness, clarity, and wisdom in difficult situations. By mentally rehearsing these responses, you train your mind to default to them when the moment comes. As you practice cultivating a wise inner dialogue, you will notice a profound shift in your responses to life's challenges. You will find that you are no longer reacting impulsively to negative events or emotions. Instead, you are responding with intention, guided by a deeper sense of wisdom and clarity. Your inner dialogue becomes your greatest ally, helping you navigate life's storms with grace and resilience. Habit 4. Develop patience as a superpower. In our modern world, patience is often seen as a weakness, a passive virtue that means waiting without action. But the truth is that patience is one of the most powerful tools you can develop on the path to mastering your mind. It's not about inaction, it's about timing, control, and the ability to endure discomfort without losing your center. Patience is the ultimate act of strength. Most of us have been conditioned to seek immediate gratification. We live in a world where answers are just a click away, where food can be delivered to your door in minutes, and where the idea of waiting for anything feels almost archaic. This constant need for immediacy feeds our reactive tendencies. When we don't get what we want when we want it, frustration sets in. And frustration is a powerful trigger for reactivity. But patience teaches us a different way. It teaches us to pause, to wait, and to respond when the time is right, rather than reacting out of a desire for immediate resolution. This doesn't mean passively accepting everything that happens to you. It means being strategic in how and when you act. Let's consider the wisdom of the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, the author of the Tao Te Ching. Lao Tzu often spoke of the importance of aligning oneself with the flow of the universe, of acting in harmony with the natural order rather than forcing outcomes. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? He asked. This question is profound. It's not about waiting passively, it's about recognizing that sometimes the best action is to wait until the right moment to strike. Patience is a practice of letting go of your need for immediate control and trusting that clarity will come in time. In your own life, developing patience begins with embracing uncertainty and discomfort. When you are faced with a challenging situation, instead of rushing to fix or resolve it, sit with the discomfort for a moment. Let yourself feel the uncertainty, the frustration, the desire for things to change, but don't act on those feelings right away. This is where true patience comes in. It's the ability to endure discomfort without reacting impulsively. One of the best ways to cultivate patience is through meditation. Meditation teaches you to sit with your thoughts and emotions without reacting to them. You observe them, you acknowledge them, but you don't act on them. Over time, this practice of non-reactivity in meditation carries over into your daily life. You begin to develop a greater tolerance for discomfort and uncertainty, and you find that you no longer feel the need to rush into action just to alleviate your discomfort. Patience is also deeply connected to the idea of long-term thinking. When you cultivate patience, you are no longer bound by the immediate gratification of short-term results. Instead, you develop the ability to think and act with the long game in mind. You understand that some goals take time, that some problems cannot be solved overnight, and that some victories are won by those who have the endurance to wait for the right moment. The ancient Romans had a saying, festina lente, which translates to make haste slowly. It's the idea that true progress, true mastery, comes not from rushing forward blindly, but from moving deliberately, with patience and precision. As you practice patience, you will begin to notice a shift in how you respond to life's challenges. You will find that you are no longer thrown off course by delays, setbacks, or difficulties. You will develop a deep inner calm, knowing that with patience, you can weather any storm and that sometimes the best action is no action at all. Patience, wisdom seekers, is your superpower. And once you master it, you will find that the world moves at your pace, not the other way around. Habit 5. Cultivate perspective. Perspective is everything. The way we see the world shapes the way we experience it. Two people can look at the same situation and see completely different realities, depending on the lens through which they view it. Cultivating a broader, more balanced perspective is essential for training your mind to respond rather than react. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it, that matters." This quote encapsulates the essence of perspective. Events in and of themselves are neutral. It is our interpretation of those events, our perspective, that gives them meaning. And it is this interpretation that determines whether we react impulsively or respond thoughtfully. Imagine this scenario. You're driving to an important meeting, and suddenly you hit traffic. You're stuck. There's no way you're going to make it on time. How do you respond? Most people's initial reaction is frustration, anger, maybe even panic. But if you pause for a moment and shift your perspective, you'll see that getting angry or frustrated won't change the situation. The traffic exists regardless of how you feel about it. Your reaction doesn't solve the problem, it just makes the experience more unpleasant. Now let's apply a broader perspective. In the grand scheme of your life, how important is this meeting? Will it matter a week from now, a month from now, a year from now? Probably not. Shifting your perspective allows you to see that this temporary inconvenience is just a small blip on the radar of your life. It doesn't have the power to derail your entire day unless you allow it to. This ability to zoom out and see the bigger picture is one of the most powerful tools you can develop for managing your mind. When you cultivate perspective, you gain the ability to respond to life's challenges with clarity and wisdom, rather than reacting impulsively in the heat of the moment. The philosopher Seneca often spoke of the importance of perspectiva, the ability to see beyond the immediate circumstances of life and view them from a higher vantage point. In his letters to his friend Lucilius, Seneca urged him to practice this habit daily. He encouraged Lucilius to reflect on the transient nature of life, reminding him that most of the things we worry about are insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe. This cosmic perspective allows us to rise above the petty concerns of daily life and focus on what truly matters. One way to cultivate perspective is to practice self-distancing. This technique involves imagining that you are an outside observer of your own life, as if you were watching your situation unfold from a third-person perspective. When you do this, you are able to detach from your immediate emotions and see the situation more objectively. You can ask yourself, how would I advise a friend in this situation? Or how will I view this situation 5 years from now? This exercise can help you gain clarity and avoid knee-jerk reactions. Another tool for cultivating perspective is the practice of gratitude. When you are faced with a challenging situation, it's easy to focus on what's going wrong. But if you intentionally shift your focus to what's going right, you'll often find that your challenges are not as overwhelming as they first appeared. Practicing gratitude helps you see the full spectrum of your life, not just the difficulties. It allows you to maintain balance and respond to adversity with resilience and grace. Let's take a more profound look at perspective by considering the Stoic dichotomy of control. The Stoics believe that life can be divided into two categories: things that are within our control and things that are outside of our control. The key to living a wise and tranquil life, they taught, is to focus your energy on what you can control and let go of what you cannot. When you face a difficult situation, ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is yes, then take the necessary actions to address it. If the answer is no, then recognize that your only responsibility is how you respond to the situation. You cannot control the actions of others, the outcome of events, or the forces of nature, but you can control your attitude, your thoughts, and your responses. This practice of focusing on what is within your control is liberating. It frees you from the frustration of trying to change things that are beyond your influence. Instead, it empowers you to take full ownership of your thoughts and actions, knowing that your response is the only thing that truly matters. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, exemplified this mindset in his Meditations. Faced with the immense pressures of ruling an empire, he constantly reminded himself to focus only on what was within his control. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This profound understanding gave him the clarity and composure to respond to challenges with wisdom and strength, rather than reacting impulsively to every crisis. Habit 6. Practice the art of reflection. Reflection is a cornerstone of personal development. It is the process of looking inward, examining your thoughts, actions, and experiences, and drawing lessons from them. The ability to reflect allows you to learn from your mistakes, understand your patterns of behavior, and grow in wisdom. Without reflection, you are doomed to repeat the same mistakes, to react impulsively to the same triggers, and to remain stuck in the same patterns of reactivity. Socrates famously said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." This statement underscores the importance of reflection in the pursuit of wisdom. To live a life of purpose and clarity, you must regularly examine your thoughts, actions, and motivations. You must take the time to understand why you react the way you do, and how you can change your responses to align with your higher values. The practice of reflection can take many forms. For some, it involves journaling, writing down your thoughts, feelings, and experiences, and analyzing them in order to gain insight. For others, it involves meditation or quiet contemplation. Regardless of the method you choose, the key is to create a regular practice of looking inward. One of the most powerful forms of reflection is evening reflection, a practice that the Stoics, particularly Seneca, endorsed. At the end of each day, they would take time to reflect on their actions, asking themselves questions like, "What did I do well today? Where did I fall short? How could I have responded better to the challenges I faced?" This nightly practice allowed them to learn from each day's experiences and to course correct for the future. You can begin this practice by setting aside just a few minutes at the end of each day to review your actions and reactions. Think back on the situations where you were triggered or where you reacted impulsively. Ask yourself, what was the root cause of my reaction? Was my response in alignment with my values? How could I have responded more thoughtfully? Over time, this practice of reflection will allow you to identify patterns in your behavior. You will begin to notice the recurring triggers that cause you to react emotionally. Once you are aware of these triggers, you can work to change your response. Reflection is not about beating yourself up for your mistakes, it's about learning from them and becoming more intentional in the way you live. In addition to daily reflection, it's also important to engage in periodic, deep reflection. This involves taking a step back from your daily life and reflecting on the broader patterns and themes that shape your behavior. Set aside time every few months to review your progress, reassess your goals, and consider whether you are living in alignment with your values. This deeper level of reflection helps you stay on track and ensures that you are making progress in your personal development. Reflection also requires honesty. It's easy to gloss over your mistakes or to justify your reactions. But true reflection demands that you be brutally honest with yourself. It requires that you look at your flaws and shortcomings without judgment, but with a commitment to growth. The Stoics understood this. They believed that self-awareness was the first step towards self-mastery. By examining your thoughts and actions honestly, you gain the power to change them. One of the challenges of reflection is that it can be uncomfortable. It forces you to confront your weaknesses, your insecurities, and your failures. But this discomfort is where growth happens. As the ancient philosopher Epictetus said, "Character is destiny." Your character is shaped by your thoughts, actions, and reactions. If you want to change your destiny, you must first change your character. And reflection is the tool that allows you to do that. In modern terms, reflection can also be seen as a form of metacognition, thinking about your own thinking. This higher level of awareness allows you to step outside of your immediate thoughts and emotions and view them from a distance. It gives you the ability to assess the quality of your thinking and to adjust it when necessary. When you practice reflection regularly, you gain the ability to respond to life's challenges with greater wisdom and clarity. You are no longer reacting impulsively to the emotions of the moment. Instead, you are responding with intention, guided by the insights you've gained from your reflective practice. Incorporating reflection into your daily routine may seem simple, but its impact on your mental clarity and emotional resilience is profound. By making reflection a habit, you will transform the way you respond to the world around you. You will cultivate the self-awareness needed to break free from old patterns of reactivity and to live with greater purpose and intentionality. Habit 7. Embrace detachment. Detachment is one of the most powerful habits you can cultivate if you want to train your mind to respond rather than react. It is the ability to let go of your emotional attachment to outcomes, people, possessions, and even your own desires. Detachment is not about becoming cold or indifferent. Rather, it is about freeing yourself from the grip of emotions that cloud your judgment and lead to impulsive reactions. It's about approaching life with a sense of inner calm, knowing that while you can't control everything, you can control how you respond to what happens. The great Indian philosopher and teacher Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita offers profound wisdom on this subject. He advises that one must perform their duties without attachment to the fruits of their actions. This means you should do your best in whatever you undertake, but not be attached to the result. This philosophy is echoed in the Stoic idea of focusing only on what is within your control. Once you detach from the outcome, you gain freedom from anxiety, fear, and disappointment emotions that lead to reactivity. Consider how often your reactions are driven by your attachment to a desired outcome. You want things to go a certain way, and when they don't, you become frustrated, angry, or disappointed. Detachment allows you to release the need for things to unfold according to your plans. It frees you from the emotional roller coaster that often comes with unmet expectations. When you embrace detachment, you are no longer swayed by external circumstances. You remain calm, grounded, and composed, no matter what life throws your way. The practice of detachment can be challenging, especially in a world that emphasizes achievement, success, and material gain. We are often conditioned to believe that our happiness depends on getting what we want, whether that's a promotion, a relationship, or material wealth. But this attachment to external outcomes places our emotional well-being in the hands of factors beyond our control. When things don't go as planned, we react often with frustration or despair. However, when you practice detachment, you take back your power. You are no longer at the mercy of external events. You recognize that true happiness and peace come from within, not from the attainment of external goals. This doesn't mean that you stop caring or striving for excellence. In fact, detachment allows you to engage more fully with life because you are no longer bound by fear of failure or disappointment. You can give your best effort without being attached to the result. In Buddhist philosophy, detachment is central to the path of enlightenment. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of all suffering. When we cling to things, whether it's possessions, people, or outcomes, we set ourselves up for pain and disappointment. The key to liberation, he taught, is to let go of attachment and accept the impermanence of all things. This idea resonates deeply with the Stoic notion of amor fati, the love of fate. When you embrace detachment, you accept life as it is, without resisting or trying to control what is beyond your power. So how do you begin to practice detachment in your daily life? Start by observing your attachments. Pay attention to the things, people, and outcomes you feel most attached to. Notice how your emotions are tied to these attachments. When things go well, you feel happy and satisfied. But when things don't go as planned, you may feel frustrated, angry, or anxious. The next step is to practice letting go. This doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. You stop allowing your sense of well-being to be dependent on external circumstances. Let's say you're working on an important project at work, and you're hoping for a specific outcome, a promotion, recognition, or financial reward. You do your best, but despite your efforts, things don't go as you'd hoped. Instead of reacting with disappointment or frustration, you practice detachment. You remind yourself that you did everything within your control, and the outcome is out of your hands. By detaching from the result, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering, and you maintain your peace of mind. Another area where detachment is crucial is in relationships. Often we place our happiness in the hands of others, our partner, our family, our friends. We become attached to how we think they should behave or treat us. When they don't meet our expectations, we react emotionally, feeling hurt, disappointed, or angry. Practicing detachment in relationships means loving others without placing conditions on their behavior. It means accepting people as they are, without trying to control or change them. It also means recognizing that your happiness does not depend on how others treat you. It comes from within. Detachment also applies to your own thoughts and emotions. Many of us are deeply attached to our beliefs, opinions, and even our identity. When these are challenged, we react defensively. But detachment allows you to step back from your thoughts and emotions, to observe them without getting swept up in them. This is where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness teaches you to watch your thoughts and feelings as they arise, without judgment and without identifying with them. When you detach from your thoughts and emotions, you gain the ability to respond to life with greater clarity and wisdom, rather than reacting out of habit or impulse. One of the most powerful exercises for cultivating detachment is negative visualization, a Stoic practice that involves imagining worst-case scenarios. While this may seem counterintuitive, it helps you detach from your attachments by preparing your mind for loss or failure. By contemplating what you fear most, losing a job, a loved one, or even your health, you become more resilient when challenges arise. You are not blindsided by adversity, because you have already mentally prepared for it. This doesn't mean you dwell on negativity, rather, it allows you to approach life's uncertainties with equanimity. Another way to practice detachment is through meditation, specifically practices like vipassana or zazen, which emphasize non-attachment to thoughts, feelings, and sensations. Through regular meditation, you learn to observe the fluctuations of the mind without getting caught up in them. You begin to realize that thoughts and emotions are fleeting, they come and go, like clouds in the sky. You don't have to identify with them or let them dictate your reactions. This awareness creates space between stimulus and response, allowing you to choose how you will respond to any given situation. Detachment doesn't mean disengagement or apathy. In fact, it allows you to engage with life more fully because you are no longer weighed down by fear, anxiety, or the need to control. You are free to act with clarity, wisdom, and purpose. Detachment gives you the inner freedom to respond to life's challenges with grace and composure, rather than reacting out of attachment to specific outcomes. As you practice detachment, you will find that you are no longer a slave to your emotions. You will begin to experience a deep sense of inner peace and resilience, knowing that your well-being is not dependent on the whims of fate. You will learn to navigate life's uncertainties with a calm, centered mind, and you will respond to challenges with wisdom rather than reactivity. Habit 8. Align with your core values. Your core values are the guiding principles that shape your life and determine your responses to the world. When you live in alignment with your core values, you experience a deep sense of purpose and fulfillment. However, when your actions are out of alignment with your values, you are more likely to react impulsively and make decisions that you later regret. Aligning with your core values is essential for training your mind to respond rather than react, because it provides you with a clear framework for making decisions and navigating challenges. The ancient philosophers, particularly the Stoics, understood the importance of living in alignment with one's values. They believed that virtue was the highest good, and that living in accordance with virtue was the key to a fulfilling life. For the Stoics, virtues like wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance were the foundation of all decisions and actions. By aligning with these virtues, they were able to respond to life's challenges with clarity and integrity, rather than reacting impulsively or out of self-interest. In modern times, we often get caught up in the busyness of life, and we lose sight of our core values. We react to situations based on immediate emotions, societal expectations, or external pressures, rather than taking the time to consider whether our actions are aligned with our values. This misalignment can lead to feelings of dissatisfaction, frustration, and regret. To align with your core values, you first need to identify what those values are. Take time to reflect on the principles that matter most to you. What do you stand for? What kind of person do you want to be? What qualities do you admire in others, and how can you cultivate those qualities in yourself? Your core values might include honesty, integrity, compassion, personal growth, or service to others. Once you have identified your core values, the next step is to regularly assess whether your actions are in alignment with those values. This requires a level of self-awareness and reflection. When faced with a challenging situation, ask yourself, am I responding in a way that is true to my values? Is my reaction driven by fear, anger, or ego, or is it guided by the principles that I hold dear? By consistently asking these questions, you can train yourself to respond to life's challenges in a way that reflects your deepest beliefs. One of the most powerful benefits of living in alignment with your core values is that it gives you a sense of inner clarity and confidence. When you know that your actions are rooted in your values, you are less likely to be swayed by external pressures or the opinions of others. You develop a strong internal compass that guides you through difficult situations, allowing you to respond with integrity and self-assurance rather than reacting out of fear or insecurity. This alignment also helps you avoid the trap of reactivity, which often arises when we are not clear on what we stand for. When you lack clarity about your values, you are more likely to be pulled in different directions by external circumstances. You might find yourself reacting impulsively in an attempt to please others, avoid conflict, or meet societal expectations. But when you are grounded in your core values, you can respond to life's challenges with greater focus and intention because you know what truly matters to you. Let's take a practical example. Suppose one of your core values is honesty, but you find yourself in a situation where telling the truth might cause discomfort or conflict. In the heat of the moment, you may be tempted to react by telling a white lie or avoiding the truth altogether. However, if you pause and reflect on your core value of honesty, you can choose to respond in a way that aligns with your integrity. While the truth may be uncomfortable in the short term, living in alignment with your values will bring you a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment in the long run. Another core value that can guide your responses is compassion. If you value compassion, you will strive to respond to others with kindness and understanding, even in difficult situations. When someone treats you poorly or says something hurtful, your initial reaction may be to lash out or defend yourself. But if you are aligned with your value of compassion, you can choose to respond with empathy rather than reacting with anger. You might ask yourself, what is this person going through that caused them to act this way? Or, how can I respond in a way that promotes healing rather than escalating conflict? Living in alignment with your core values also helps you navigate difficult decisions with greater clarity. When faced with a tough choice, you can evaluate your options based on whether they align with your values. This approach simplifies decision-making because it provides you with a clear framework for determining the best course of action. Rather than being overwhelmed by conflicting emotions or external pressures, you can focus on what is most important to you. One of the greatest challenges in aligning with your core values is the pressure to conform to societal norms or the expectations of others. Society often values material success, status, and external achievements, and it can be tempting to chase after these things, even if they are not in line with your values. However, when you prioritize living in alignment with your core values over meeting external expectations, you experience a deeper sense of fulfillment and purpose. Conclusion. In conclusion, training your mind to respond rather than react is a lifelong journey of self-awareness, discipline, and intentionality. By cultivating these 8 habits, practicing mindfulness, embracing discomfort, mastering emotional regulation, fostering patience, cultivating perspective, engaging in reflection, embracing detachment, and aligning with your core values, you will transform the way you navigate life's challenges. You will develop the mental clarity and emotional resilience needed to respond to any situation with wisdom, grace, and inner strength. And in doing so, you will not only improve your own life, but also inspire those around you to live with greater purpose and intentionality. Thank you, wisdom seekers, for joining me on this journey. Let us continue to cultivate these habits and grow in wisdom, for it is through these practices that we truly become masters of our own minds and lives.